Senator John Cornyn, thank you for joining us again.
Great to be with you.
Last time we talked was a little over a month ago. How's the campaign been going?
Well, it's really just getting started. Even though there's been some advertising for a few months now, it's now started in earnest. Of course, I've been traveling the state. I was in Dallas and then Waco yesterday, and just we're getting around the state quite a bit. And of course, I still have a day job, and so I was meeting with folks like the L3 Harris folks, one of the 6 largest defense contractors in the country in Waco, Texas, and learning more about what they are doing to contribute to our national security. And then in Dallas yesterday with the mayor talking about the World Cup and the $100 million we were able to secure as part of the One Big Beautiful Bill to help Houston and Dallas handle security efforts. So a lot going on.
Speaking of day jobs, your campaign for the last couple of months has been pounding the drum about missed votes from Representative Hunt, one of your primary opponents. That became a national headline last night as he had to impromptu fly from Texas to D.C. to cast the tie-breaking votes. What are your thoughts on all of that?
Well, Woody Allen, I don't know how many people remember who Woody Allen was, but he used to say 80% of success in life is showing up. And you can't claim to support President Trump and his agenda if you don't show up and vote for it. And there's just basically no excuse. He gets paid $174,000 a year, and he's missed, I think, roughly 90% of the votes this year so far. So it strikes me he's not particularly serious about doing his job, and so why in the world would anybody want to promote him to an even more responsible job representing the entire state?
One of the things that his campaign talked about is that he's campaigning very hard to retire you. Yep. It's one of several attacks on your age. He talked about using AI to make you look younger. Before this, you brought up Rahm Emanuel. He suggested earlier this week that there should be a 75-year age limit. You're not there yet, but you would be during this upcoming term. What are your thoughts on just all the attacks on your age in this race?
Well, I think President Trump is 79. He may have had a birthday, or he may be 80, I can't remember. But so the fact is I enjoy my job, I'm healthy, and I think I've learned a lot from doing this a while. And I think I've become a more effective representative for the state. I know it's kind of a trite saying, but sometimes people like to distinguish between show horses and work horses. And for better or for worse, I guess I tend to be more of a workhorse, producing things like $11 billion in reimbursement for Texas taxpayers as a result of the state's efforts to secure the border during the Biden administration, working with Governor Abbott and others. So I guess he's got to say something, but it doesn't really have the ring of truth.
And now President Trump has not made an endorsement in this race. Right. One of the few high-profile races across the country he hasn't made an endorsement on. What do you think that says about how he's feeling about this primary?
Well, if I were Wesley Hunt or Ken Paxton, I'd be pretty upset because they're running as the most supportive people of President Trump. But of course, they like to ignore the fact that I've supported the president and his policies almost universally since I've been in the Senate, since he's been president. And we've accomplished a lot together. He and I have a very good relationship. But you know, look, he's the one guy who'll make that decision when the time is right. In the meantime, we're working to remind people of what my record is, and obviously I need to earn their vote and earn his vote, hopefully, ultimately.
So last week, with our partners at Emerson, we released some polling on this primary race. It showed you and Attorney General Paxton neck and neck. He was 1 point ahead of you with with Wesley Hunt, about 10 points behind there. And I want to read you this quote from our pollster when I asked him. He said, "You're likely to make the runoff, but, quote, that runoff is going to be tough because those Hunt voters look a little more like Paxton voters. How do you plan, if you end up making the runoff, to try to elevate yourself over whoever your opponent is?"
I think the main issue is turnout, as you know, and these midterm elections, particularly in a non-presidential election year, I don't know what the exact number is, 10 to 12% of registered voters will actually vote in the Republican primary. and maybe even less under ordinary circumstances in a runoff on May the 26th. But we're working very hard to reach out to encourage people to participate. Many Texans don't think it makes a difference, it's not important, and we are in the process of trying to convince them that yes, it does make a difference and it is important. If I'm the nominee, I will be able to help all the races down ballot. I won by 10 points in 2020, and if Ken Paxton's the nominee, he not only won't be able to help with down ballot races, because if he wins at all, it will be by a small margin, but he's likely to lose. And in the meantime, Republicans will spend hundreds of millions of dollars trying to salvage a guy with all that baggage that they could use to pick up Senate seats in Georgia, Michigan, New Hampshire, and North Carolina. So I think, again, President Trump and his team understand what I call the business case for my candidacy, and but in the meantime, we're not wasting any time.
And I want to ask you about a couple things that Attorney General Paxton has done in recent days. First, I want to ask you about that opinion that he authored on Martin Luther King Day about DEI in Texas.
That's the first time I've ever seen an Attorney General opinion that was not requested by anybody. It was more, obviously seemed like a political document rather than a legal document. Obviously, one of the jobs of the Attorney General is to issue official opinions and advice on Texas law upon request by a handful of selected requesters. But I think, unfortunately, that's how the Attorney General does business. He does it by press release, and in this case now, using his official title and Texas tax dollars to promote his candidacy. I think it's entirely inappropriate. I think it may even be a violation of campaign finance laws as an illegal contribution. But I think most people see through that sort of stunt and don't give it a lot of credibility.
And then last Friday, he released his first television ad. It featured an AI version of yourself and an AI version of Representative Jasmine Crockett, who's running on the opposite side of the aisle, dancing together using real quotes from both of you about being dance partners to work to get legislation passed. What do you have anything to clarify on those quotes, and what were your thoughts on the ad?
Well, I thought it was a non-serious, phony ad, which reflects the non-serious, phony nature of his campaign. Look, I'm a conservative Texas Republican, and of course with a 99.3% voting record with President Trump, I obviously vote consistently with the president. But I also have in mind, you know, what can we do to help promote the welfare and benefit my Texas constituents? And I'm willing to work with anybody on things that will help advance the interests of Texans. That's who I work for, and that's what I do. So I just thought it was kind of a cheap shot, but that comes from a guy who basically is trying to get by on cheap shots and has during most of his political career.
And I want to talk to you lastly about a quote that I've seen, a very small quote that might be taken out of context. I just want to give you some chance to clarify about saying James Tallarico is dangerous. What did you mean by that? And I've seen even the Tallarico campaign push that out as some of their messaging. What did you mean by that?
I guess he's proud of that, but basically what I clarified is he's a fraud. You know, he constantly likes to quote scripture and claim to be a seminarian or a seminary student. But then when asked about religion, he claimed that all religions were essentially the same pathway to truth. In my faith, that's not true. And to say, well, basically Christianity is no different from Islam or Judaism is really a heresy among evangelical Christians, of which I'm one. So that's what I meant. He's dangerous because he's a fraud. He's kind of claims to be something he's not.
Will you be watching our debate tomorrow between Crockett and Tallarico?
If I can, yeah, I'll be, depends on if it conflicts with any football. Otherwise I'll record it and watch it later. But yeah, that ought to be fun.
And then speaking of debates, when I talked to Representative Hunt earlier this week, he seemed frustrated at the lack of cooperation on debates. What is your response to that?
Well, nobody really knows who he is outside of his congressional district, and this is an effort by him to get some visibility. And I just don't see any point in wasting the time debating with Congressman Hunt, since his candidacy is not going to survive the March 3rd primary, because then there'll be a runoff, of course, between me and the Attorney General.
As we wrap up here, is there anything else you want to end on? You have the last word.
Well, I think we've covered the waterfront, so thanks for taking the time.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time, Senator Cornyn.
You bet.